So sometimes it's just fun to try out new tennis strings. It's not really about trying to improve as a player, it's more about trying to experience something new. But with so many millions of different strings out there, how do you make sure you're trying something truly unique? Well, that's why you have me, this idiot who's tried like over 100 different tennis strings in his god-forsaken life. So these are the most fun tennis strings, or maybe just the unique tennis string experiences that you can find today, which will offer you a truly unique hitting experience. So first up, we've got the classic Natural Gut. There are so many tennis players out there who haven't tried the OG of tennis strings. And I know what you're saying, it's so expensive, but I'm telling you, it's worth spending all of your hard-earned monies on Natural Gut. There's absolutely nothing else like it, and even with inflation, rising rents, crazy interest rates, and stagnating wages, I think it's definitely worth taking a second mortgage on your house or selling your car just to try Natural Gut. And regardless of your level, playing style, racket type, or geopolitical opinions, Natural Gut will pocket that ball better than any other string out there. The feel on the ball you get is so connected and so plush. Effectively, it doubles the size of your sweet spot and makes your old sweet spot feel even sweeter. For this, I recommend going with the best of the best Babolat VS Touch. And if you usually use poly, you might want to bump up 4 or 5 pounds. If you use multi, maybe 2 pounds, or if you're worried about arm things, which you probably won't be with Natural Gut, you might want to keep at the same tension. The next epic string experiment that you should try is super low tension poly. Not 48 pounds, not 45 pounds. It needs to be like 40 pounds or lower to really get the effect. Go as low as you dare. I personally have tried as low as 16 pounds and I found it absolutely hilarious. You'll be shocked at how much ball pocketing you get. It's going to be like rivaling Natural Gut now. And the best part is you can stick with whatever poly you're currently using. I honestly think if you just want to take a risk, it's totally fine to cheap out in this case and get something like $5 a set, super cheap. Because usually what happens with polys, the more you pay, the more tension maintenance you're going to get. But that doesn't matter so much when you're kind of bottoming out the tension. There's just not that much more to lose. So here's what to expect with a super low tension setup. Much higher launch angles at these tensions. It might force you to hit with a little more spin to try to bring that ball back down into the court. You never know, this might be good for your tennis if you struggle with getting that brush up on every shot. But if you don't usually use poly and you're worried about the discomfort associated with polyester, I wouldn't worry too much. With tensions this low, the string bed is just so soft, there's such little impact shock, and I would feel pretty confident recommending this to almost anyone to try, especially since it's so fun to use. So if you're looking for my recommendation on a poly that does perform exceptionally well at these low tensions, retaining abnormally high amounts of control for anything under 45 pounds, Grapple Snake Tour M8 is the only string that I know of that was explicitly designed with low tensions in mind. So next up we have maximized spin setups. And honestly, few string journeys have got me as personally excited as a couple of years ago when I tried to get the most spin I could out of my tennis strings. To maximize spin from your string setup, you're going to want to look at two things. The first is going to be getting a super sharp, grippy string to put in the mains. This will help the strings really grab the ball, minimizing that energy loss when it comes to spin potential. So to me, there are two strings that really stand out above the rest when it comes to something super sharp. They actually hurt to string and weave your crosses through. They're that sharp. The first is going to be Grapple Snake Game Changer. It's square shaped, comes in two colors. The silver feels a little bit more crispy than the green, and the next is YTech Square X Sharp, which is like a neon yellow string. Both will totally do the job. I recommend getting with whatever color you like or what's ever easy for you to get in your location. I do find that Game Changer holds tension maybe a bit better, and the playability, duration, and control might be a little bit better, but both are totally fine and both will give you that full experience of a super grippy string bed. The next thing you want to do is find the slipperiest cross to really facilitate that snapback. Really lets those strings move and apply as much spin as possible as the ball leaves the string bed. Right now, I think there are two strings that are the best in terms of slippery crosses. Those are Restring Zero and Tourmaline Wasabi X. But if those are a little bit hard to get in your area, as they can be hard to source outside North America, Yonex Polytour Fire is great. It's silicone infused. We've got RPM Rough, which has a surprisingly slippery coefficient of friction considering the texture. True Pro, formerly Tier 1 Ghost Wire, works well. And if you want something a little bit cheaper and even more accessible, Wilson Revolve will get the job done just fine. For this, I would recommend going with your usual tension, but maybe want to do a tension split, so string those crosses a little bit looser. The theory is that would kind of let the mains move a little bit more. I don't know if it really does, but if you just want to do everything in your power to maximize spin, you could try it. And if you are interested in checking out any of the strings that we've talked about so far, I will post some links in the description. Some of these links are affiliate links, and they'll also give you a discount for up to 20% off while helping grow this channel, helping us produce a little bit more content than we have in the last couple of weeks. So next up, we have maximum control string setups. So here, there's a couple different options to maximize control. I think first we'll start with the polyester options. We can go one of two different ways. First, Babolat RPM Power, and second, Grapplesnake Paradox Pro. Both of these strings feel similar. They have a sandpapery texture and kind of feel like copper wire when you bend them, so they're not springing back like most polys. This means that they have really above average ball pocketing. They really kind of form around that ball and like cup it in the string bed. And you're going to get a much more connected feel than is typically available in polyester strings. I know for sure with Paradox Pro, it's because there's a high percentage of metal used in the string that provides like a really mechanical ball feel. It's super pure, and RPM Power feels quite similar too, but I don't really know what the magic behind it is. So if you ever felt that RPM Blast was maybe a bit too dead and muted, Hyper G Polytour Pro may be a bit too plasticky, either Paradox Pro or RPM Power are going to transmit a lot more hitting feel through the string bed to really help you stay connected to every shot. But one thing I do want to note about both of these strings is the launch angle is going to be quite a bit lower than your typical poly. So at first that string is going to feel a little bit underpowered and a little bit dead, but you can just trust that if you hit through that, you're not going to miss and that ball will stay in. I also find that spin is a little bit below average, but that sandpapery texture does give you a nice grip on the ball, so you can modulate your spin in a pretty controllable way. I personally think that if you're looking to maximize depth control and directional control, that these sacrifices in spin and launch angle are definitely worthy trade-offs, because you are going to get simply unmatched directional control with either of these options. This works super well for flatter shots, and it's really easy to maintain that pinpoint precision with either RPM Power or Paradox Pro, and you won't really experience that sporadic launchiness that is common with your typical polyesters. Between these two, RPM Power is more readily available since it's made by Babolat, but in my experience, Paradox Pro lasts at least twice as long, which is nice, and I think the intensity of the feel is a little bit more unique, a little bit more present, a little bit more obvious. So if you really want to go crazy with your control setups, look no further than Kevlar or Aramid strings. I've tried it before and I was pleasantly surprised with like how fun it was. It wasn't like using concrete in my racket. My arm wanted to fall off right away. When I personally first tried Kevlar, for some crazy reason, it was very fashionable to employ crazy tension differentials between the Kevlar mains and whatever you put in the crosses. There's one crazy guy on the Talk Tennis Warehouse forums, Shroud his name was doing like 80 pounds Kevlar mains with I think Wise Cannon Mosquito Bite at like 20 in the crosses to really try to get that Kevlar to snap back. When I tried it, I didn't go so crazy. I didn't want to deform my racket, so I went with the 60-40. So still a 20-pound differential, which is pretty significant. And in my crosses, I went with a cheap Singut head PPS specifically. The ball pocketing was insanely good with this setup, but it's a totally different type of ball pocketing. Normally when you get this ball pocketing, it's kind of like a slingshot or a trampoline effect where the ball sinks into the string bed and the string bed stretches back. With Kevlar, because it's so stiff, it's more like it compresses the ball and turns it into a pancake, like crushing the ball, which is a totally different feel off the string bed, but it still gives you a really connected, control-oriented experience. One other thing I would say is, even though Kevlar is so stiff, it's important not to string it too loose. That's why all these other guys are stringing it so tight. Because Kevlar has like no elasticity, so when you stretch it out, it doesn't return back to form. It does lose tension pretty quickly. So going with something too loose could just leave your strings kind of like loose, wavy strings and like overcooked spaghetti in your string bed. So it'd be pretty unpredictable and hard to really apply a lot of spin that way. So I probably wouldn't go much lower than 55 pounds, at least to start. And you might want to start with a softer Singut in the crosses, but I think a slippery round poly would work great too. I would say if you do want to explore higher tensions and wacky differentials, do so at your own risk. You could risk deforming the hoop of the racket if you're going with something too crazy, and then arm pain would be a concern with anything too tight. So let me know if you think I missed a crazy, unique string setup, and we'll see you in the next one.